Hey everybody, this is Erica. What we're going to do today is talk about the importance of documentation and giving feedback because it will help you if you have to fire an employee or if you need to cover your rear end to protect your own job. So let's get into it. If you have an employee, and I see this a lot, I scour Reddit and look at some of the questions and provide answers in there. And one of the questions that comes up is how do I handle an employee who is consistently having attendance issues, is consistently missing targets? What do I do with them? And it seems obvious if you are more tenured, but the answer is you should be giving them feedback and holding them accountable. And when you are doing that, two parts, there's the feedback part and then there's documentation part. So the feedback part is how do I give them this information? And so we'll talk about that. You would pull them into a one-on-one, whether it's in person or if you're doing a virtual through Teams or some type of webinar face-to-face, but you would have this private conversation where you set the expectations. Here is what the expectation is. Here's where you are. This is what I need to see from you. Here's a date that I need to see this be turned around. And if it's not turned around by this date, this is the next step that we'll take. And then you would progress in those conversations. What you can do to make those conversations easier is to use a feedback model. And I have a lot of examples of these, but one is the SBI model, which is situation, behavior, and impact. So in that situation, you would explain the S as situation. So what was the scenario? Where did this happen? What is happening that you're addressing? The behavior is what the employee is doing that is causing a problem. And then the I is the impact. How is this impacting them, their performance, their reputation, or the team, the business, whatever it is? It can be easy to let your emotions make you nervous, rush through it, maybe skip something. If you start to read their body language and you panic and then your mind goes blank, using that model helps you to have a framework for delivering that. So that's the feedback piece. And you want to make sure that you're doing that as often as you need to. And if this is a repeat situation, you need to determine either with yourself, your senior manager, or with HR, how many times you need to have this conversation before you can take action. But after each conversation is part two, the documentation part. And documentation is crucial because it covers that you said, they said situation. If things go south and you end up having to terminate this person, you have to write them up, put them on a performance improvement plan or a PIP. Having this written down, having it sent to them with the details. Hey, Bob, we met on this date. We talked about this problem. I set this expectation. Here was the timeline. Here are the proposed next steps if that timeline is not met. Send it off. It's a summary. They don't have to respond to it typically, but it's just having a paper trail that you had a conversation, you documented it, you send it to them, so you always can go back and look and say, not only did we meet on this date, but I wrote this to them to prove that we had this conversation. So documentation, it might feel tedious. It might feel frustrating to have to do it. I know if you're really busy, having to memorize the conversation we just had feels annoying, but it will cover your rear end in a situation where any kind of legal issues come up, or if they just, again, you said, they said, we never had that conversation, Erica. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't know that this was a problem. Why didn't you tell me this before? Well, actually, Bob, I did on these 3 dates, as you can see by these emails. And now we're taking more official action. We're going to write you up. We're going to terminate, whatever it might be. So in summary, that is the gist of giving feedback and the importance of documentation. If you need help with this, I do have courses on this, and I also offer coaching to meet with you and talk about this one-on-one. But if you have any questions, as always, reach out. Thank you.